do it.
I'm glad you brought that up because that segues me into another thing that I did want to talk about. And there are a couple polls that I want to talk about that just came out. Now, you and I both have agreed that polls aren't, they're an indicator, but they're not, something that we should celebrate with. When I hear stuff like 80% of Americans, I'm like, no, it's 80% of like 1,300 people. It's not 80% of Americans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but there is an interesting poll came out. I think it's worth noting. There is a poll that, let's start. So Donald Trump has some good news and some bad news. Let's start with the good news for Donald Trump, which probably wouldn't think you'd hear on this show. The poll, there's a new poll that found, it's an Associated Press poll, so a legitimate poll. They found that 63% of Republican voters now say they want former president to run again, which that's obviously happening. 7 in 10 Republicans now have a favorable opinion of Trump, an uptick from 60% who said that 2 months ago. So his poll numbers are going up with so-called Republicans. But in a crucial warning sign for the former president and his supporters, Trump faces glaring vulnerabilities heading into the general election. And that's what I want to talk to you about Ron DeSantis too in a minute. The poll found in the general election, 74% of Republicans say they would support Trump in 2024. However, 53% of Americans said they definitely would not support him, and another 11% said probably would not support him. So that's 64% of America, or of 1,300 people, that said it's actually 1,165 people to be exact, that they definitely would not support Donald Trump. And this, I think, was before, that's even before they said whether or not he would, go to jail. Right. So you would imagine that number could possibly go up a little bit if he does.
Right.
Yeah. There's also more on that about Joe Biden. So I think it's fair to talk about Joe Biden's numbers on here. Yeah. The poll asked the same questions for Joe Biden and found a slightly better result for the incumbent, but not by much. 54% of respondents said they would not support Biden, with 43% saying they definitely not support him in a general election, which another 11% saying they probably wouldn't, which brings that total to 54% compared to Trump's 64%. Not a great number, but there's also, Biden does command greater party loyalty, with 82% of Democrats saying they would support him in a general election. And I do believe that number goes higher when we get the RFK Juniors out of the way and the Marianne Williamsons and, and people like that. So
and then who are they polling? Because again, who are they polling? Because this happened before the last election. Biden was polling really low too. Like it was.
Yeah.
I don't listen to them.
And we talked about it earlier. Every time for a president, it is very important that you are looked upon as somebody that is good for the economy. And going into the last election, I believe Joe Biden was slightly ahead of Donald Trump when it came to the economy. But there's a couple of factors that played in then, and there's certainly a couple of factors that play in now. Back then, obviously, there was one of the worst leadership of a crisis maybe in the history of man. Right. Donald Trump with COVID.
Right.
Now you're going to have a lot of voters who may not even give a shit who that presidential candidate is. They want to know which one is going to protect my abortion rights and which one is not. Yeah. And that is a major, you or I could be on the ballot, although I think either one of us probably could win presidency. That is a big factor in this upcoming election. And it's been pretty clear, over all the special we left last week talking about Ohio.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is going to fuel, oh my God, that issue. What's the other issue? It's abortion. It's what the heck's the other one?
I'm sure we'll come up with it, but I think the main one, I think, because that is, the Republicans are not even backing down from it. They are
No.
making it clear. I
Yeah.
think I saw a clip of Laura Ingraham on Fox News the other night say this is the best victory that Republicans have had in a long time, and they probably should be celebrating this more. Where on the converse is, do you know Ann Coulter?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
She's
You,
she's still dating JJ.
I don't want to think about Ann Coulter dating anybody, but I will say she's come around a little bit because she has basically said the second that Republicans realize that abortion is a huge issue, there's not going to be any Republicans left. And she's right. And it's just, so I don't understand the strategy. It seems pretty clear that we're heading towards, you know, and it's not going to be an easy election, but I just have this feeling every day, and it's not me putting my guard down, that the MAGA movement is melting more and more every day.
I agree that, I mean, I think Democrats at this point are not just Democrats, because that abortion issue is fueling women.
Yeah.
It's not just Democratic women that have abortions. There are people who don't even do politics. There's Republicans who have had to have a DNC. Like, it's just a thing.
Yeah.
So and those people aren't polling, but they will sleep at the polls to be in line. Like, no one's leaving those lines. Like, those lines are going to be wrapped, and no one's going to leave.
And I'll tell you why it's encouraging is because, first of all, you're talking about a state like Ohio that has voted for Trump, and in certain counties, the measure that they tried to pass last week. First of all, I think they tried to confuse people as to whether or not you should vote for yes or no.
Amendment, yeah.
But the women there, the men there who were for the rights of women and their right to choose made sure they knew exactly what to vote for.
Yes. Yeah, that's amazing, because that's how they try to get us when they put these things on there and make the wording so confusing. And it's just like, vote no. Like, just vote no.
And if they're doing that in a red state, it's encouraging to think that there are purple states and obviously blue states that people are going to be very energized on that issue alone. Because if they lose this one, it's not going to be pretty. I really don't think it's going to be a really, really bad thing for this country. And unless, of course, the Democrats win the House and the Senate and it leaves Trump or whoever it is the president, it leaves them basically,
hopefully that we can get back the House. I think that we can. I think some errors were made in New York. But we can. I think we can do it. And like you said, it's going to be even bigger this time than it was the last time, because everyone's getting caught up in the military. Like, they're isolating the military at this point. Like, they don't even want their votes anymore. They have isolated military. They have isolated the women. They have isolated the men that love the woman, because guess what? If a woman can't have an abortion, that means that the man's sitting around going, I'm forced to pay child support?
Yeah.
Neither one of us want to do this.
Right.
We're not together.
Yeah.
This is a one-night stand and I have to pay child support.
You're exactly right. And, the other thing too is Republicans are always complaining about being able to recruit to the military, and they're making it very difficult. What woman is going to go into the military now and she's going to say, well, what happens if I mistakenly get pregnant, or if I get raped, or if I get, I'm forced to have this baby and I'm not allowed to leave the base. I'm not allowed to fly somewhere to get an abortion. To me, that's more dangerous, your little stance here on abortion, than keeping people out of the military. And then, of course, we talked about Tommy Tuberville and his one vote that would change, being able to put people in our military in places where they should be, where they're not right now. Yeah, I know, Lana.
It's like Republicans it's just trash. That party has just, since McCain, it's just trash.